The city plans an event tomorrow night on its plans for Franklin Park and Columbia Road, partially based on the original concept for the Emerald Necklace. This is part of the comprehensive planning process, Imagine Boston 2030. To tell us about the plan and the event is our guest from Imagine Boston 2030, the Director of Engagement, Natalia Urtubey. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Natalia, first of all, just set the stage here by talking, what is Boston 2030 for people who have not been plunged into this so far?
Yeah, so the mayor announced Imagine Boston 2030 in September of 2015 as the first citywide comprehensive planning process. The last one that was done was in 1965, and it was really, comprehensive. So we're looking at what do residents want the city to look like in the next 15 years and beyond. And so for the last 2 years, we've been gathering feedback, listening to residents. We've done it in lots of different ways, everything from online mapping tools to text message surveys to in-person engagement, to going to communities for their neighborhood association meetings and workshops, etc. So we've been doing that for about 2 years now. In November, we came out with the first draft of this plan, and from November to May, we had residents submit feedback on the plan, what was missing, how would they enhance it, how would they want to see that vision come to life. And we just recently released the last version of the draft, which allows us to continue to get feedback before the final one comes out this summer.
Well, Franklin Park is the largest structured park in the city, and I know you've had meetings looking at this before. What's this plan like exactly right now?
So we did a meeting in February to get just initial thoughts about what are the enhancements that Franklin Park needs currently, today, to make it, just safer and better for the residents that use it. But how can we also envision Franklin Park for the future? So it's already a tourist attraction in a lot of ways with the zoo and other, entities internally. So how do we also make sure that as folks are coming in to visit it from externally, from all over the world, it's a wonderful,
well, people need to know more about what's in it, because yes, they might know there's a zoo, they might know there's a golf course, but there's a whole lot more.
Oh, absolutely. There's bike paths, walking paths, there's, trails, and it's seen as, wilderness. There's a whole section of the park that's a wilderness. There's a pond. There's so many wonderful things. There's so much great programming that happens in the park. And I think what we want to do is to make sure that as the park, gets the enhancements, that the residents are also benefiting from it, and that it is becoming both a, world-class park, a citywide park, and also that the residents around the park are taking really ownership of it and being able to really get their voices heard.
Yeah, well, it would be great if a lot of people walked there and came on bikes, but some cases, if you're going to get more people, they're going to have to drive, and there are going to be weekends, I guess. It's going to be hard to find a parking space unless you change the way it's mapped out there.
Yeah, so a lot of what we're talking about in this, in the Franklin Park spotlight is really around how do we improve the connections both to the neighborhoods but also externally to the park. Whether it's bus and transit, there's a Fairmount station very close by, the Four Corners station, and so really making sure that connectivity and access to the park is enhanced as well.
This is BNN News. We're talking with Natalia Urtubey from Imagine Boston 2030. Natalia, what about Columbia Road? A lot of us who drive along it, we sometimes forget that this is the thing that connects Franklin Park, the green in the middle of the city, with some green on the shoreline in South Boston. So how are you going to get more of that feel into this road?
That's exactly right. So we believe that Columbia Road could be the missing link to completing the Emerald Necklace. And so in the plan, we've outlined it as a green transit corridor. And that's, we've gotten into details, but that's as far as we've gotten so far. We really want this to be a community process that it begins with the residents living along Columbia Road, the community organizations that work along Columbia Road, and really making sure that as any enhancements or anything happens, that it starts with the vision from the community first. So tomorrow's meeting is really allowing us to kick off that conversation. There are some enhancements that are currently happening along Columbia Road that aren't super visible. There's some green, porous infrastructure that was, done around Upham's Corner, but then there's also a phosphorus reduction initiative with Boston Water and Sewer that's happening. So thinking about how do we talk about those things that are happening now, but also looking at how we're looking, how we can enhance Columbia Road for the future and starting those conversations. So tomorrow is really going to be about what does this process look like for residents? What do residents want along Columbia Road without making any decisions, because we're not there yet.
And I guess the key thing here is things that benefit the people who live within a few blocks of this road, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a huge residential corridor, and we want to make sure that it works for the residents that are living there now, whether that is parking, whether that is, looking at how do they access Franklin Park or other parks. How do they, get on mass transit? Is it for shopping or, pedestrian access? What is it that Columbia Road could really be to enhance the lives of the residents living there now?
And finally, Natalia, you should mention the details on when and where this is going to be happening.
Yes, so the meeting will be tomorrow from 6 to 8 o'clock. It's going to be at the clubhouse at Franklin Park, which is right at 1 Circuit Drive in Franklin Park.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having us.
From Imagine Boston 2030, Natalia Urtubey.